All right, everyone. Welcome. We're back for hopefully our final session. We're going to finish the book of Matthew, and we are on 26, and the plan is to go from 26, 27, and then finish 28. Okay? So, without further ado, go ahead.
Okay. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he told his disciples, "You know that the Passover takes place after 2 days, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the courtyard of the high priest, who was named Caiaphas?
Caiaphas, yeah.
Caiaphas. And they conspired to arrest Jesus in a treacherous way and kill him. "Not during the festival," they said, "so there won't be rioting among the people." While Jesus was in Bethany, at the house of Simon the leper, a woman approached him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume. She poured it on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw it, they were indignant. "Why this waste?" they asked. "This might have been sold for a great deal and given to the poor." Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a noble thing for me. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. By pouring this perfume on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then one of the 12, the man called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you?" So they weighed out 30 pieces of silver for him. And from that time, he started looking for a good opportunity to betray him.
All right, pause. So, do you guys know what's going on? So, Judas, okay, one of the 12 disciples, okay, let me read this over again so we could.
We'll start with the dinner, because they're having a dinner. They're preparing a dinner for Jesus.
Okay.
The night, I think it's the night before the crucifixion. So they're celebrating Passover, I think?
Okay, so Judas is one of the 12, and what we just found out is that he went to the leading priests, okay, and he has asked how much will they pay him to betray Jesus, okay? Are you listening? Judas, so that he betrays Jesus, okay? So what we're learning here is that somebody is looking for the opportunity to betray Jesus, and all of this stuff Jesus already has foreshadowed in the before it happens. Okay. You want to keep reading the 17?
Okay. On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" "Go into the city to a certain man," he said, "and tell him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I am celebrating the Passover at your place with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them and prepared the Passover. When evening came, he was reclining at the table with the 12. While they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." Deeply distressed, each one began to say to him, "Surely not I." He replied, "The one who dipped his hand with me in the bowl, he will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for him if he had not been born."
Okay, so let's pause real quick here.
Wait, Judas?
Oh, go ahead.
Judas, his betrayer, replied, "Surely not I, Rabbi." "You have said it," he told him. Now repeat.
Okay. So now, we learned before that all this stuff happened. We learned that Judas was already working in the background to see how he can betray Jesus. And then here now we're learning that Jesus already knows, and he's speaking it ahead of time. So he's saying, one of you is going to betray me. I already know that this is happening. Okay, so this is Jesus knowing, because since he's God, he can foresee things. And he even says, let's see here. He said, one of you has just eaten from this bowl with me. One of you who has just eaten from this bowl with me will betray me. And they're all looking at each other saying, not me, not me, not me. But he said, for the Son of Man must die, as the scriptures declared long ago. So he knows that he has to die. And he says, for the Son of Man must die, right? But how terrible it will be for the one who betrays him. It would be far better for that man if he had never been born. And then Judas turns to him and says, Judas then turns to him and says, Rabbi, am I the one? And Jesus said, you have said it. So now we know that Jesus even told Judas, you're going to betray me. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Go ahead. Sorry.
As they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, gave it to the disciples, and said, take and eat it. This is my body. Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them and said, drink from it, all of you. For this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. But I tell you, I will not drink from this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. After singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives.
So this is very important. What we just read just now, that's what's called the New Covenant. Okay, the New Covenant is important because that's what separates us now being born, or not being born, but being brought into the New Covenant instead of what covenants they had before. Now in the Bible, there's a series of covenants that people found themselves attached to in different periods of time. We find ourselves attached to the New Covenant. And he just said the New Covenant is, each of you drink from it, for this is my blood which confirms the covenant. Now it's not actually his blood, it is a symbol, it's symbolism for his blood. Okay? Between God and his people. Okay? So it's saying this is a covenant, this is a promise, this is an agreement between God and his people, okay? It is poured out as a sacrifice to forgive the sins of many, okay? Mark my words, I will not drink wine again until the day I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom, okay? Okay, then now we're on 31.
Then Jesus said to them, tonight all of you will fall asleep because of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you to Galilee. Peter told him, even if everyone falls away because of you, I will never fall away. Truly I tell you, said Jesus to him, tonight before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Even if I have to die with you, Peter told him, I will never deny you. And all the disciples said the same thing.
Okay, so here we see that another disciple, we learned here, Jesus said, tonight all of you will desert me. All of you, right? For the scriptures say God will strike the shepherd. Listen. God will strike the shepherd. Who's the shepherd? Jesus. Jesus is the shepherd. Okay? God will strike the shepherd, and the sheep, that's us or his followers, will be scattered. Okay? But after I have been raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there. So not only did he know he was going to die, what else did he know?
That someone was going to betray him.
Well, he knew somebody was going to betray him, but what else did he know? Let me read this again. But after I have been raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there. Well, he's going to meet some people there, but what's going to happen? He's going to die, and then what?
And then he's going to rise again.
He's going to rise again. Has that happened yet? Here, in this part of the story? No. So he's foreshadowing that as well. So he knows he's going to die, he knows who's going to betray him, and he's saying down here even further, Peter says, even if everyone else deserts you, I will never desert you. So he's trying to say, like, I love you so much, Jesus, don't worry, I'm not going to desert you, I'll be there with you the whole time. But what he doesn't understand is that he's speaking as a human. Jesus is God. Jesus knows all things. He knows the future. He knows people's hearts. He knows what's going to happen, right? He knows what choices you're going to make, right? And he's telling them, I tell you the truth, Peter, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times that you even know me. So, in other words, he's telling Peter's going to say, I don't even know that guy. 3 times. Not once, not 2 times, 3 times before the night is finished. So, in other words, don't say that you love me, don't do all these things because you don't know what's going to happen and you're actually going to betray me. You're also going to betray me. You're going to not betray me, but you're going to deny me 3 times. So, it's important to listen to the things that Jesus says, what he wants us to do. And in Peter's case, there's something that later on we find out is going to be very important for Peter. He's going to be the one that carries the church after Jesus. But this has to happen first. Okay? So let's go ahead and continue.
We are on 36?
36, yeah.
Okay. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane. And he told the disciples, sit here while I go over there and pray. Take along Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee. He began to be sorrowful and troubled. He said to them, I am deeply grieved, to the point of death. Remain here and stay awake with me. Going a little farther, he fell face down and prayed, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. He asked Peter, so couldn't you stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray so that you won't enter into temptation? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Okay, so here we're seeing Jesus is in agony because he knows now it's really starting to set on him what's going to happen to him. Okay? And he's praying because just like he's God, he's also man. So he's the one person who's ever been born man and God, right? But he's praying to his Father and he's saying, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken from me. In other words, if there's any way, Father, that you can do any of this stuff without having me have to suffer, do it. Why? Because that's the moment of weakness that we see in Jesus, that because he's man and he does have agony. He is concerned. And he understands that he's going to go through a lot of pain. Okay? So he's saying, Father, if there's anything, any way you can do what you intend to do without me having to suffer, can you please take this from me? And he's asking people to go with him, okay, to watch with him. He took Peter and Zebedee's 2 sons, which are James and John, right? And he says, let's see here, he wanted them to watch over him while he was there, and they kept falling asleep. Okay, so let's continue. I'm just setting the scene a little bit so we understand what's going on. So Jesus knows what's going to happen to him. He's afraid. He's in agony. He's asking the Father to make this pass from him. So we're on 42. Actually, 40, yeah.
Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. He asked Peter, "So couldn't you stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray so that you won't enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again, a second time, he went away and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." And he came again and found them sleeping because they could not keep their eyes open. After leaving them, he went away again and prayed a third time, saying the same thing once more. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? See, the time is near. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's go. See, my betrayer is near."
So he's prayed 3 times. And now he knows that his time has come. Okay? So I'll go ahead and pick up on 47. Give mommy a break. And let's see where we get. Okay, so, and even as Jesus said this, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priests and elders of the people. The traitor, Judas, had given them a prearranged signal. Okay, so he had told them, "Hey, when I do this signal, you guys come in. That's when you can take Jesus." Okay? "You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss." Okay? So Judas came straight to Jesus. "Greetings, Rabbi," he exclaimed, and gave him a kiss. Jesus said, "My friend, go ahead and do what you have come for." Okay? So even though Jesus knows, and he's told Judas that he's going to betray him, he says, "My friend, go ahead and do what you have come for." In other words, I'm ready. I'm prepared for this. Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. But one of the men with Jesus pulled out his sword and struck the high priest's slave, slashing off his ear. Okay, and I think if I'm not mistaken, the person who did that was Peter. Right? Yeah. Yeah, it was Peter. And we can see that in John 18:10. Okay. So Peter was like, "You're not going to arrest Jesus," and he goes to defend Jesus. So even though Peter has, he doesn't fully understand everything, he's always kind of had a passion for defending Jesus. So here we see that he's wanting to cut off his ear. The soldier who came to arrest Jesus, he's willing to defend Jesus. Okay? "Put away your sword," Jesus told him. "Those who use the sword will die by the sword. Don't you realize that I could ask my Father for thousands of angels to protect us, and he would send them instantly? But if I did, how would the scriptures be fulfilled that describe what must happen now?" So he's saying, it's not that I don't have power. It's not that my Father doesn't have power to stop this. My Father and I both have power to stop this. But if we stop this, then everything that was prophesied in the past can't happen. Make sense? Because in the past, we learned that the Son of Man will be crucified. Okay? So, it's a predicament. So, but we know that God knows better than all. Okay? And we need his will to be done. And his will is written in the scriptures. And the scriptures say that the Son of Man will be crucified. Okay? But if I did, how would the scriptures be fulfilled that describe what must happen now? Then Jesus said to the crowd, "Am I some dangerous revolutionary that you come with swords and clubs to arrest me?" In other words, I've never fought anyone. I'm not violent. I don't have any weapons. I don't have anything. Why do you show up with swords and clubs and things like that to arrest me? "Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there teaching every day. But if I did, I was there every day teaching. But this is all happening to fulfill the words of the prophets as recorded in the scriptures, like we said earlier. At that point, all the disciples deserted him and fled. So after he was taken, all the disciples, just like he said would happen, they all left. They all left him alone. Because they saw, okay, this is getting bad. So if we're seen with him, we might be in trouble too. And they all took off. Okay? Then the people who had arrested Jesus led him to the throne. Led him to the home of Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of religious law and the elders had gathered. Meanwhile, Peter followed him at a distance and came to the high priest's courtyard. He went in and sat with the guards and waited to see how it would all end. So here we see Peter's kind of following along, but he doesn't really want to be seen. Okay, like he's like so that people won't know who he is. Okay? Inside, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find witnesses who would lie about Jesus. Okay? So they could put him to death. So they wanted to put him to death because they say he's teaching people other things. It's not what we teach. But they didn't know that he was teaching the truth. So they were looking for people that would lie about Jesus so that they can kill him. Okay? But even though they found many who agreed to give false witness, they could not use anyone's testimony. Finally, 2 men came forward who declared, this man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Right? So he was taking what Jesus said, and he was telling them what he said. I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself? But Jesus remained silent. Then the high priest said to him, I demand in the name of the living God, tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God. Jesus replied, you have said it. You have said it. So he confirmed to the high priest, okay, that he was claiming that he was the Messiah, the Son of God. Okay? And in the future, you will see the Son of Man seated in the place of power at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven. Okay? Then the high priest tore his clothes to show his horror and said, blasphemy! Why do we need other witnesses? You have all heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict? Guilty, they shouted. He deserves to die. So what you have to understand is, in that time, the Jews believed that anyone who made themselves equal to God was doing blasphemy, which is disrespecting God. Okay? So they were saying, hey, how dare you say that you are like God? But Jesus is saying, I'm the Messiah. I am the Son of God. And you're going to see. One way or the other, you're going to see. Right? So the high priest got very upset. Okay? Guilty, they shouted. He deserves to die. Then they began to spit in Jesus' face and beat him with their fists. And some slapped him, jeering, prophesy to us, you Messiah. Who hit you that time? So now they're making fun of him. They're beating him and making fun of him. Peter denies knowing Jesus. Okay. Meanwhile, Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came over and said to him, you were one of those with Jesus the Galilean. But Peter denied it in front of everyone. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Later, out by the gate, another servant girl noticed him and said to those standing around, this man was with Jesus of Nazareth. Again, Peter denied it, this time with an oath. I don't even know the man, he said. A little later, some of the other bystanders came over to Peter and said, you must be one of them. We can tell by your Galilean accent. Peter swore, a curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know the man. And immediately the rooster crowed. Suddenly, Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind. And this is what Jesus had told Peter. Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times that you even know me. And he went away weeping bitterly. So he started crying because he realized that he had just said that he didn't know Jesus. And it broke his heart that he had done that and denied him. Okay? So that's 26. Any questions? There's a lot there. There's a lot that happened. We see that Jesus knows what's going to happen to him. He's trying to prepare his disciples. The disciples then try to say, no, Jesus, we won't betray you. We won't deny you. And then they end up doing both, and they run away. They hide. Then Jesus is confronted by Caiaphas, the high priest. He tells Caiaphas, the high priest, exactly who he is and what's going to happen. Caiaphas gets upset, wants everyone to say he's guilty so that he can kill Jesus. Okay? And that's kind of where we are. Okay? So everyone's separated, just like was prophesied before, okay? When it says, God will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. Okay? They're scattered. Okay. Any questions?
Is there anything that stood out to you that you had a question about or that you thought was important for you? That you thought was interesting?
The last part when he was saying he was the Messiah. Why couldn't God tell that to them in their minds?
Well, remember what Jesus said. Jesus said that the prophecy from the scripture must be fulfilled, right? So that means that God already knows what's going to happen, and Jesus being there already knows what's going to happen as well. So it's not about stopping what's going to happen, it's understanding what is happening and why. Okay? And being able to discern. Discern means to be able to tell the purpose and the understanding of everything. So Jesus's whole point of being there was to sacrifice himself, to accept sacrifice for the cleaning of all our sins. So he knows that he has to die, because if he doesn't, do we have salvation? No. We won't have salvation because his sacrifice wasn't done. Make sense? So Jesus knows, I have to go so that they may live. Make sense? If he doesn't go, we don't live.
Well,
What's your question?
we won't live if we sin if he doesn't.
Now remember, when I say live, when I say live, I'm talking about the afterlife, heaven. Okay? If in order for us to attain heaven or have possibility of heaven, we need somebody perfect, somebody who's sinless and blameless, so that he can do it for us, because we can't do it for ourselves. We can't save ourselves. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What about you, little man? You don't have a question? Shocker. Alright, cool. So, Matthew